Hi friends, welcome back to my channel Art Girl Funky. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Birjees and I'm a self-taught leisure painter. Today, what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about brushes. These are the brushes that I use. So every artist has a preference, but I think it's so important that if you're especially a new painter who's never had any experience of any kind of painting, whether it's watercolor, oil, or acrylics, that you choose the right brushes. From my own experience, I started painting back in the late early 90s, or rather the mid 90s, and back in those days, there was no such thing as the internet, as you know. So the thing we had to rely on was our own sort of intuition. And I'd seen lots of artists on TV, especially oil painters, doing oil paintings. And I thought, oh, I'd like to try that. And the very first time I went into a art shop, it wasn't actually an art shop. I think it was called Paper Chase. It was a stationery shop. I went straight for the section where they sold art supplies, and just picked up anything at random, simply because I didn't know what I was looking for. And as a new artist, that's a very big thing that can happen, that if you don't have the right guidance, you can just pick up random brushes. In fact, the very first brush I picked up was a bristle brush like this, just like that. It's actually an oil painter's brush, and I didn't actually know that it was for an oil painting exercise, for oil paintings. So, so you learn, and I realized when I was doing my very first painting, the painting looks streaky, and of course it would look streaky because it was actually a bristle brush. So today, what I'd like to do is just to sort of give you a quick guidance, especially if you're a beginner, on the sort of brushes that you should be looking for when you're buying them. And of course, if you're a seasoned artist, I'd just like to show you the brushes that I use, and have a look at some of the brushes that I sort of tend to modify. I do modify quite a few brushes myself. So what do we look for? Well, the first thing you should be always looking for when you're looking for artist brushes is, if you're doing watercolor, that you should actually be looking for brushes that are specifically designed for watercolor. You'll find them for oil, acrylics, and watercolor. Sometimes the label will say that it's for acrylics and a watercolor, and sometimes it can be, but a lot of the time it can't. So what I've got here is a number. It's a number 9. Sorry, it's a number 9 Daylon. Daylon brush, Daylon 66 brush, and it's got a nice sort of point once you actually dip it in water, as you can see here. Look, it comes to a nice little point, and this I bought a long time ago, and that's what you should be looking for. Now, brushes have different types of bristles. You can get ones made from natural hair, and ones that are made from synthetic, and then there are those that are sort of a mixture. Now, if you can't find ones that are mixture, then I would really suggest you go for, as a beginner, the synthetic ones. You can try the natural hair brushes, but you might find that it's a bit more difficult to control. I've got a couple of sable brushes, and I find it very hard to get anything done, especially when I'm working on details. So I don't use those synthetic brushes. Even though they're small, they're still difficult to use. So I tend to go for the synthetic ones. So this is a number, as I said, number 9 from Dela, and it works pretty well. I mean, it has lost some of its point, as you can see there. It has lost it over the years, but it still serves its purpose. I mean, it does put down washes and things really well. Let me show you what it does. Point the camera down, and you can have a look. So as you can see, I've drawn a leaf here, and the point it's not coming to a point. And if I try, I'm not getting there. As you can see, it's very, very difficult for me. And this is with the Daylon, the Rowney Daylon 66, like that. And just to, don't worry about the actual shape of the leaf. I'm just trying to show you how not pointed it is. I mean, I've had a lot of trouble, as you can see. So this is the Rowney brush. Now, I have to admit that, well, I mean, I might have sort of misused it by leaving paint in the ferrules here, so possibly. I can't remember how much this cost, but these brushes will cost a bit more because they're sort of branded with the Dale Rowney name or the Winsor & Newton name, so you might find that. So what I tend to use, I've come across Daiso, And the Daiso has a set of brushes. It comes in a pack of 4, and I found their watercolor brushes here, and these are absolutely wonderful. They actually are so good. They keep their point really well, as you can see. Look, I can do whatever I like with them, flicking them this way, that way, holding them this way. They always come back to that sharp point. Both of them do. And what I have here is a number 8, and this one is a number 12. Now, again, with the numbering, you might find that a number 12 in one brand isn't the same as a number 12 in another brand. Now, this one they've called number 9, but if you have a look at the size, they're both exactly the same. Exactly the same. So I would say that the Dyson number 12 is the same as the Dela number 9. So, but as you can see, this one is in a sharp point right there. You can see here. And I'm going to show you how this one works in a minute. And this one has sort of frayed a little bit. And I have to be honest with you that when I'm trying to paint a point with this, I can't do it. I have to always go back to this one. I'm sorry, the Daiso people have these packs of 4, and they've got a number 12 and a number 8, and they've got a couple of smaller ones here. This one's a number 0, and it also comes to a really lovely point there, as you can see. Look, really lovely point. And this one is a number 4, and again, this one retains its point pretty well. Look, as sharp as a knife. Actually, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's really brilliant. Okay, so these are the brushes that I use, and let me show you how this one actually works on paper. Right, this is the Daiso number 12, and as you can see, I can go straight to the point, metaphorically speaking, of course, and of course I can press down hard and get that, and still come back and do the stem very nicely. As you can see, I can get as thin as I want there. And this is with the number 12. This is the number 8 from the Daiso range. And again, I was able to get to that point. See, it was compared to this one here. Just very quickly put that in. I'm not wasting my time here. Look, there. So, when you choose a brush, try to make sure that you've got one that actually holds a fair amount of water, and this one does. And as I show you how much water it holds, let me show you. This is just some tinted water. Paper's moving. You see how much water the paintbrush transferred to the paper? It's almost, see, look, all of this just from that one brush here. And you can always sort of dip it in. But if you wanted to do a quick sky, see? I mean, it's not perfect, I know. And after all, it is only a brush that costs under £2. But I think it serves its purpose for most needs, so you can go back in again. But you see now, it does hold a fair amount of water. You might have to dip it in 2 or 3 times, but hey ho, that's how it is. But for £2, this brush and a bunch of the other brushes, they're not a bad investment. But of course, by all means, feel free to buy a more expensive one if you wish, if you have the budget. Now, you can get the long-handled ones, the short-handled ones. I personally like the ones with the short handles, simply because I find them easier to put in boxes and things if I have a container or carrier that I want to put them in. The longer ones are a bit more difficult to store unless you have a permanent desk where you've got them sitting up there like this. And you can see that this one was a lot longer here. It was about that long, and I've sort of snipped the end off there just so it fits into my pochard box or into my cases. One thing you shouldn't do is go for cheap brushes. Cheap brushes are a disaster. These are cheap brushes. I inherited them from someone, and I don't remember who, but they're very cheap. But you can see, look, I wet them, and look what happened. It sort of doesn't come back to its straight razor edge, or even straight for that matter. The same with this one. It doesn't come back. You don't want that. And this one, let me wet it, and look, it doesn't come back either. It doesn't come back. So if you find brushes that are really cheap, now okay, I admit that these are cheap. It's about under £2, but they're very good, made in Japan, very very good. I don't know where these are made. Actually, I do, but I'm not going to say it. But um, they don't come back to a sharp edge. And the other thing I found was that I went into a shop once and went and decided to buy some really cheap brushes, and they were had this sort of texture, and they started shedding hair everywhere. A bit of a disaster, and I returned it because there was hair everywhere. It was all over the painting in the water pot when I was rinsing the thing out, so that was no good. So these are the brushes that I use, and I would suggest if you are going to buy them, and you need to buy them, then I would suggest a number this size, which is the same as this Daylon size, and a smaller one, this one, number 8, and a rigger. Now, a rigger is a liner brush, and they're very good for putting in riggings of lines and things, and for spindly branches in trees. They're very good for that. Now, I do have riggers, but what I found is that I also found that there's a way of making a rigger if you can't find one, because sometimes it's not easy to find these things, especially if you're living out somewhere where it's hard to get to an art shop and you don't really like ordering stuff online. I certainly don't. There are ways of making a rigger, and what I took was a really cheap brush. This is a Marie's brush. It's a very cheap one. It's a pack of 6 or 7 I got, maybe even 12, for very, very cheap. I think it was £2 maybe. And what I did was I took a pair of scissors and I started snipping away at the outer hairs like that until I got this fine tapered point. And it actually works. And I'll show you. Now I'm going to do my rigger, or homemade rigger, but I'm going to put the branches in first. So here's a tree here, a little tree there. Right there like that. Just any old colour will do. And now I'm going to go in with my homemade rigger, as you can see here. And just watch. Look, I'm getting all the fine lines here. Right there, like so. I can pull out from there, pull out from here. And this is the rigger that I made. But make sure that when you use the rigger, there's enough water in it. There you are. There, look, all the little lines are coming through and all the way here like that. There you go. There's the rigger. If you can't find a rigger, get a cheap brush and start snipping away and get that. It's brilliant. It absolutely works wonders. So these are the brushes. Now I want to tell you about brushes that I've actually modified. Now I modified this one to get a rigger if I can't get hold of one. Now sometimes painting trees, a lot of beginners have trouble painting trees. Especially when they're not really when they don't really know how to load the brush properly, load these brushes properly, because sometimes the water to paint ratio is very critical in achieving the dry brush technique for trees. So, but I've got an easier way of doing it, and I did create a video on this called Painting Trees, and I've put the link to that video in the box below. But basically, what I've got here is an oil painter's brush. It's a Georgian oil painter brush, again by De La Rowney, but I don't paint in oil. So what I did with this was, now the brush was that much longer. It was that big. So what I did was, again, I took a pair of scissors and I snipped away at it like that to make it smaller. And what you can do with this is you can dip it into a fairly thick mixture of paint and create a dappled effect for trees. And let me show you how that's done. And here's the bristle fan brush. You can stipple on the trees, the branches of the trees, sorry, the foliage of the trees like that, and put them on here. Put a bit more paint on there. Much easier than actually using your brush. Although I do urge, or encourage rather, to use the brush just as a learning sort of technique, just for learning purposes. There we are. And now I can go back in with the rigger, and let's put the branches in here like that, and like this, like this. There you go. And there's our fan brush with the rigger. And the final brush I have here is again, same brand. And what I really wanted was to be able to, when I've created a wash, be able to pull out with the stroke of a brush small lines to create to suggest details on roosters' heads and things like that. And again, what I did was I took a pair of scissors and snipped away on the outer until I got this really thin edge here, really thin, and does do a really good job. And let me show you how that works. This is the homemade detail brush, and I can pull out like that. Lots of hairs like this with that, even the tiniest ones like this. So there we have it. These are my brushes, and suggestions for you are get a good round brush with a sharp point. Preferably, I think synthetic is the best. And if you can't get hold of a detail brush or a strip liner brush, then make your own. So there we are. There we have it. My brushes. I hope you enjoyed that video. I certainly found it very interesting to make. Please do consider subscribing if you found this information of value, and give me a like and press the bell notification. And of course, do leave a comment. Tell me if you've modified any brushes or done anything unusual with your brushes. I might actually do a whole video on some of the brushes that I've created. But do let me know in the comments what you think. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in my next video. Thank you.